listed as participants. Well, it's 7:04. I guess we ought to get started. Welcome everybody to the Lee District SSPA Task Force meeting. As you all know, from long experience at this point, I have a script to go through, and then we will get to the substance of our meeting. By the way, I'm Ed Joseph, the chair of the task force. So to conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by the Freedom of Information Act and the emergency ordinance, the Lee District SSPA task force needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. First, because each member of the task force is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each task force member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating. Of course, it is fine to just say you're at home. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. So, moving to the roll call, Robert Livingstone.
Robert Livingstone at home.
Thank you. Carol Allen.
Carol Allen at home.
Thank you, Carol. Rand Pixa. Rand, I know you're out there. Rand? Moving on. Pamela Pineros. Her alternate Leslie Hatch. Leah Lambus Skidmore.
Leah Lamba Skidmore from home.
Thank you. Larry Dempsey. Larry, are you out there? Moving on. Jane Kelly.
Jane Kelly from home.
Thank you, Jane. Jeff Safel.
Jeff and Sona Safel at home.
Hi, Ed. How are you?
Hello, Sona. I'm fine. Okay, Tom Rickert.
Tom Rickert from home.
Thank you, Tom. Cindy Potter. Cindy Potter. Alternate Jay Dick.
Cindy Potter from home.
Oh, Cindy, you're here. Good.
I am. Yes.
Excellent. Jim Drinkard. Jim, are you with us? Moving on. Rosemary Clay.
Yeah, he really did. And it could be any.
Rosemary Clay.
Yeah. No.
I see Rand Pix's picture showing up on my screen. Rand, could you state your name and where you are?
Yes, Rand Pixa at home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Liz Murphy, alternate for Rosemary. Are you with us, Liz? Holly Doherty.
Holly Doherty at home.
Thank you. Don Tennant.
Don Tennant at home.
Thank you. Carl Sell. Are you with us, Carl? Moving on, Marta Morrissey.
Morrissey at home.
Thank you. Steve Levinson,
Steve Levinson at home in beautiful downtown Springfield.
as always. Thank you. I'm here. Edward Joseph. All right. Tom Sachs.
Tom Sachs at home.
Thank you, Tom. Jim McCracken.
Jim McCracken at home.
Thank you, Jim. John Tomko.
John Tomko at home.
Thank you, John. Richard Dresner.
Richard Dresner at home.
Thank you. John Gannon. Don't believe she's with us tonight. Is there any member of the task force on the call who did not answer up already? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
And Liz Murphy is in the, she is a panelist. And I heard you call her name, but she's a panelist, but she didn't answer.
Liz, are you there?
Liz is here at home. Liz
Thank you, Liz. Okay. That gives us 18. All right. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to Vice Chair Tom Sachs so that I may be heard to make some necessary motions.
Do I hear any motions from the floor?
Yes, you do. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of the Lee District SSPA Task Force.
Is there a second?
Second, Levinson.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is passed. Are there any other motions?
Yes. I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for the task force to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting. And as such, Freedom of Information Act's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of the task force and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the task force may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated video or audio conferencing line, and that the public may access this meeting by registering through the meeting link on the Track a Plan Amendment webpage of the SSPA website, or by calling 1-844-621-3956. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
Second, Levinson.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Motion is carried. Any other motions?
Yes, I move that this meeting must be conducted online during the current emergency in order to discharge the lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities of the Lee District SSPA Task Force.
Is there a second?
Second, Levinson.
All opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion is carried. Or any abstentions? Motion is carried.
Thank you. And I'll take the virtual gavel back. Thank you, Tom. So members were provided with a draft of minutes from our meeting of March 7th. Unless there are any suggested changes, I'll now entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
John Tomko, I move to approve.
Second, Tom Sachs.
Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes, please
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. The minutes are approved. So tonight we will consider draft plan text for Brandon Avenue, prepared for us by staff based on our previous discussions. Staff will present the draft, and then we will move to a period for questions and comments from members of the public. Following that, the task force will discuss the draft. We can accept it as it is or edit it to better fit the recommendation we want to make to the Planning Commissioner and Board of Supervisors. In the end, we will vote on exactly what our recommendation will be. That vote could come tonight or at our next meeting, depending on how the discussion goes. Following our consideration of Brandon Avenue, tonight we'll turn back to the Vandoorne TSA amendment. Staff will discuss the concepts that we can include in our recommendation. This will be followed by a period for comments and questions by the public and then discussion by the task force. Based on the feedback from the task force, staff will then draft plan text for us to consider and vote on at our next meeting. If things go as anticipated, we should be able to finish our work at our next meeting, April 25th. So, with that, I will turn the floor over to, I think it's David Stinson, if I'm not mistaken, from staff, to present the plan text.
All right, thanks, Ed. Can everyone see?
We can see your screen. Yep. I would just remind everyone to please mute yourselves if you're not the one who is speaking. Thank you. So take it away, David.
All right, thanks, Ed. I am David Stenson with the Fairfax County Department of Planning and Development. Also in attendance from the Department of Planning and Development are Laura Arsenault, Clara Johnson, Elizabeth Haig, Mike Linsky, and Steve Waller. Additionally, we have Tom Burke, Farouk Hezajan, and Arpita Chatterjee from the Fairfax County Department of Transportation. At this evening's task force meeting, we are going to discuss the draft plan text for 6235 and 6245 Brandon Avenue and resume the discussion of the plan amendment for the Vandoorne transit station area with the goal of developing draft plan text for the next meeting. Then we will close with an overview of potential next steps and the schedule moving forward. So we will start with 6235 and 6245 Brandon Avenue. The objective of this evening's meeting is to review the draft plan text with the goal again of a recommendation and a vote on the task force and a vote from the task force regarding the plan text. I will start the discussion by providing a brief overview of the plan text, which was distributed to the task force on Friday and is posted on the Lead District SSPA task force website. The draft plan text proposes for the proposed self-storage use recommends adding an additional option for the subject property with conditions to address concerns and issues discussed at previous task force meetings. This proposed option will not change the existing base plan or remove the existing option in the comprehensive plan for an office building. The first conditions I will show the task force address consolidation and maximum height. In order to facilitate a coordinated development for the entire block, the parcel proposed for self-storage use will be consolidated with the adjacent hotel. It should be noted that no changes in use are proposed for the hotel site. Consolidation is also necessary for implementation purposes under the zoning ordinance. Additionally, the maximum height for the self-storage facility will be limited to 7 stories. Next, we have the proposed conditions for the ground floor use and building design. At the previous task force meeting, we heard from you that active ground floor uses are important to the success of the CBC. The proposed condition recommends a variety of ground floor uses, which will offer flexibility and also can respond to market conditions. Additionally, the building design and architecture is also important to the long-term success of the CBC. And the proposed conditions addressing this recommends compatibility with surrounding hotel and multi-story buildings. Next, we will move on to the stormwater management condition. Any redevelopment in Fairfax County is subject to stormwater guidance found in the area-wide and policy plan. However, the draft plan text for this plan amendment proposes a condition to strengthen stormwater management guidance, emphasizing the reduction of runoff through green stormwater infrastructure. Next are conditions addressing streetscape improvements and gateway features. The existing recommendations in the comprehensive plan for the Franconia Springfield area include design guidance for streetscapes along Brandon Avenue and Commerce Street. Additionally, the comprehensive plan includes recommendations for gateway feature enhancements throughout the Springfield CBC, including the corner of Commerce Street and Brandon Avenue, which is part of this plan amendment. The draft plan text includes conditions for the provision of streetscapes improvements and gateway feature enhancements that are consistent with the area-wide recommendations of the comprehensive plan. And finally, the draft plan text also includes conditions for a multimodal connection along Augusta Drive and for bicycle and pedestrian facilities along the access drive connecting Brandon Avenue and Augusta Drive. So now I would like to open the floor for public comments. If you have a comment, please use the raise hand icon.
In order to find that raise hand icon, if you click on participants and then look toward the bottom of the participants window, I think you'll see a place to a little hand to click on. Do I have that right? I think I do.
Correct.
That sounds right. And also, if you're call in, I believe you hit *3. Is that correct, Steve?
That's correct. *3
thank
will
you.
raise your hand.
So, for members of the public, please raise your hand if you have something you'd like to ask or a comment you'd like to make. I'm seeing no hands raised. Okay.
Ed, it's Lynn Strobel. I raised my hand. Maybe I didn't do that correctly. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Len.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Would this be an appropriate time to offer a comment from the nominator, or would it be after the public comment and the comment from the task force?
I lost Ed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we lost Ed.
Hi, Lynn. This is Laura. Let's just give Ed 1 minute to try to come back and see if we can get him going. Oh, there he is.
Hi. I'm not sure what just happened. I was just speaking. Was anyone able to hear me?
No, you went away.
I went away. Okay.
Yeah, and your video
well,
turned off.
I'm not sure what that was about, but I think we're back. Lynn, you had something you wanted to say?
Well, I didn't know if this was the appropriate time to offer a comment from the nominator, or if it would be after everyone's done. I think we've lost Ed again. Oh, no.
Like everybody just froze up again, and now we seem to be back. I hope this doesn't keep happening. I hope it's not a comment on you, Lynn. I don't know.
I think it is. I'm a little nervous now. I'm not saying a word.
WebEx doesn't like you.
No.
And this is Laura. I would recommend maybe turning your camera off if you can, because sometimes it takes a lot of bandwidth. But Lynn, yes, we had you slated for the public comment to speak if you'd like to.
Okay, so I would just offer a very brief comment. I just wanted to say that we appreciated the fact that David was able to send us this language when he sent it out to the task force. So we did have an opportunity to take a look at it, and you know, we are comfortable with all the development conditions. They were reviewed by our civil engineer and our traffic consultant. As you know, we are getting ready to file a rezoning application so that it can proceed, you know, concurrently with the plan text. The only comment or concern that we had is the next to the last bullet that refers to a multimodal connection for public use should be provided along Augusta Drive, and it suggests fronting both tax map parcels. And you know, we've talked about what we can do on our property to extend that further on Augusta along the existing property would result in a loss of parking spaces. And we wanted to examine that further going through the rezoning. And our suggestion was that we would say a multimodal connection for public use as feasible should be provided along Augusta Drive. And that would just give us an opportunity to explore that further as we go through the rezoning process. So other than that, I appreciate the opportunity to review the language with the task force in advance, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay. Still looking for other hands from the public and not seeing them. So this is your chance if you have anything you want to say or ask.
And Gail Niddle has her hand raised.
Don't see that, but Gail, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to give David Stinson and the staff a shout out for their cooperation with the Civic Association. We've been very happy with the responsiveness and the cooperation that we've had from them. Lynn, I also, along with Marta, had a question about the multimodal. What exactly does that mean in practical terms? Is that sidewalks? Is that what? I'm showing my ignorance here, but what does that include?
David, maybe you want to take that?
Yeah, multimodal can mean it provides flexibility and can mean any type of pedestrian or bicycle facilities. And is someone from FCDOT here maybe to elaborate on this by any chance?
David, can you put your map up while they're talking about it?
Sorry, David, what was the question? My kids are doing math homework.
Oh, no worries. We're talking about multimodal connections, and I was saying that it's going to be flexible, meaning pedestrian and bicycle facilities along Augusta Drive is kind of what the intent of that was.
Yeah, 8 years ago, we had a bicycle master plan that may have identified on-road bike lanes, but we're now thinking that a separated facility is probably more.
I'm sorry, if you're not the one who's speaking, please mute yourself.
Yeah, so we think that it's important to put in the plan, that this frontage along Augusta Drive will eventually have a bicycle pedestrian type connection, a safe bicycle pedestrian connection, so that the folks that live to the north can get into the CBC easier, and the people that are in the CBC can get up into the residential areas to the north, similar to what we have in the plan for Brandon and other north-south facilities. But yeah, we're thinking it would probably be some kind of shared use path that would allow for both bicycles and pedestrians.
Well, would it make sense perhaps to make a reference to bicycle and pedestrian where it says multimodal to be a little more clear about what exactly is contemplated?
Personally, I don't. Yeah, David, I'll let you.
I mean, multimodal could mean train and bus. I mean,
We're just trying to make sure that it's not just auto oriented. it serves other modes. But if David and the DPD folks think that getting that specific, maybe saying including but not limited to,
That might make some sense as far as I'm concerned.
I'm not sure there'll be transit in on Augusta Drive at any point, but you don't want to rule it out either. So I would
A new metro line on Augusta Drive.
the DOT folks can work with David and Laura maybe to iron out some clarification or clarifying language on it.
Ed, I have a question for Lynn.
Who's speaking? Is that Tom?
Yes, it's Tom.
Well, I at the moment I'm trying to get, well, nobody else from the public wants to speak up, it would seem. So Tom, go ahead.
Yes, Lynn, you mentioned that this, the multimodal that Tom Burke just referenced is part of the big background plan for, the bicycle paths, et cetera. And you mentioned that if it crosses both your nominators' parcels, it would cost some parking places in the second.
The parking places for the existing hotel, the hotel property also has frontage on Augusta Drive, and it has some existing parking, and we want to make sure that we take a look at that, in conjunction with the rezoning. And that's why we had suggested multimodal connections, for public use, as feasible, should be provided, because we want to, clearly we don't want to make any changes to the hotel property.
Does your firm represent the hotel?
Well, the hotel is consenting to be a part of this rezoning application.
Well, wouldn't this be the time to have that conversation with them?
I think it's more appropriate during the rezoning because we'll be looking at, the property as a whole. We're looking at everything with the rezoning. So I kind of feel like the plan, as we know, is a guide. And so I think it should be just a little bit more flexible so that we can make sure that we cover all the details with the actual application for rezoning.
Have you spoken to the hotel about this?
Yes, my client has. I personally have not, but my client, who is the owner of the self-storage piece, has been in conversation with the hotel. They're working with them.
How many parking places are we talking about?
We actually haven't, because this language came out very recently. This has not been discussed with them. And I would have to check with our engineer. I think it might affect up to, maybe it was 5 parking spaces.
I'm just afraid if we kick the can down the road, then it's not gonna happen.
Well, I think that, again, we don't have any issue providing it along the frontage of parcel, 5C2. So that is not an issue. But, we're going to have to study to see what we can do on that adjacent property.
But so why can't you guys just commit to doing your part and then work the other part out later?
And that's fine. We could say that, I'm sorry, I can't speak tonight. Multimodal connection will be provided along the frontage of parcel 5C2 and as feasible on 5C1. I mean, that would be fine too.
That would go a long ways towards, getting your person on board.
Yes, I think that would be fine.
Lynn, this is Tom Sachs. I would go back to Ed's language. A bike and pedestrian connection will be provided as appropriate. Because again, multimodals could commit you to things you have no interest in.
And that's perfectly fine. That worked even better for us. Yeah. And maybe this bullet just needs to be a part of that final bullet, because it talks about enhanced bicycle and pedestrian facilities should be provided along the access drive connecting Brandon Avenue and Augusta Drive. And maybe it says, in addition to
as feasible
Augusta
along
Drive as
Augusta
appropriate
Drive.
or something. Yeah. Maybe it's saying Augusta Drive too much, but I don't know. But I think there's a way to modify this that we're all comfortable, making sure that yes, we will be providing that enhanced bicycle and pedestrian facilities along our frontage, and certainly to the extent that we can along 5C1.
So is there any reason we can't eliminate the multimodal bullet and just add a reference to, in the last bullet, enhanced bicycle and pedestrian facility on Augusta Drive in addition to along the access drive?
Maybe it's as easy as saying enhanced bicycle and pedestrian facilities should be provided to the greatest extent possible in conjunction with development or something like that. You know, I mean, just maybe it's.
This is Marta with Springfield Civic Association. I think that the interest here for our community is having a path that could lead into the neighborhood. So the neighborhood itself has access, you know, the residents do, because that's a fairly highly trafficked drive, that Augusta Drive, and people do tend to speed through there as a cut through. So any alterations to that, I'd like to see it remain specifically with Augusta Drive. Yeah, so we don't lose that piece of it, that it would assist the residents.
This is Tom Sachs. I recommend we reword it as follows. Enhanced bicycle and pedestrian facilities should be provided along Augusta Drive as well as along the access drive connecting Brandon.
Those were the exact words I was about to utter. I think that captures what we're talking about. I don't know if anyone disagrees.
And I think I'm sorry.
Oh,
could you repeat that, please?
The final bullet would read, enhanced bicycle and pedestrian facilities should be provided along Augusta Drive as well as the access drive connecting Brandon Avenue and Augusta Drive.
Does that mean we eliminate the second to the last bullet?
Right.
I think it does. I don't.
Yeah.
David,
That makes sense.
David, if we're going through draft language, can you pull up a Word document with the draft language so people can see in real time the changes that we're making?
Yes, I'll do that.
Thank you. I think it's helpful to have it all up at the same time.
Obviously morphed into the task force discussion, which is fine.
So what I heard, David, was deleting the second to last bullet. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And then I have enhanced bicycle.
I think they're deleting the first bullet.
No, the next to the last.
I said second to last. Yeah, second to last. Yeah, second to last bullet. And then the next one should read, enhanced bicycle and pedestrian facilities should be provided along Augusta Drive as well as.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
And David, could you turn on track changes too so they show up in red? Can you do that on this one?
Sure, I'll do that.
Thank you.
I have a question. This is Tom again. On the map, Access Drive was capitalized like it was the name of a road. Is it a name? Is it the name of a road, or are we talking about an access drive?
Oh, it's the access drive connecting Brandon Avenue and Augusta Drive. It's actually a private roadway. It runs along the perimeter of the hotel property and the site proposed for self-storage.
That is not meant as a street name, is that correct?
No, yes, it's not a street name.
No, it was capitalized on the map. That's just through.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
I'm just trying to understand.
Anything else from members of the task force?
I have a question, not on that, but on the next paragraph.
Go ahead, Carol.
I just wanted to make sure I understood. Land Unit A, if I understand correctly, includes the hotel, the parcel that's being applied for storage, and the office building to the north of that. Is that correct?
It only includes the hotel parcel and the parcel that's proposed for self-storage.
Land Unit A.
Well, no, that's the subject property. Land Unit A.
I just wanted to make, when I was reading this, when I look at the land, when I go up that block, there's two buildings there, the hotel and an office building, an office complex. And then the parcel sort of toward the back, that's the subject of the application for the self-storage. Now, do all three of those compose Land Unit A?
They are Land Unit A. Do you see the map I have now? Let me see if I can kind of
Scroll down a little bit, David.
I have it in front of me. Yes, I see the map.
So let me see. So this is all of Land Unit A. So it includes, well, actually, it includes everything south of the office building, all the way Augusta to Bland Street to Brandon Avenue. So
If you see the key at the bottom, it kind of helps identify Land Unit A.
Yeah, well, I see the key at the bottom, but Land Unit A is written on this map up above in the non-shaded area. So it was a little confusing to me when when the language talks about Land Unit A, and it talks about redevelopment on the northern boundary of Land Unit A. That looks to me like the parcel between the hotel and the storage unit, a potential storage unit, and the residential development to the north of that parcel. So I was a little confused as to what the language was referring to in the last paragraphs.
And I'm sorry, Carol, I misspoke. Land Unit A actually does go all the way up to the residential area. That other map was the core area of Land Unit A.
Right.
So this area right here, the top of the map is
Right.
Land Unit A of the Springfield, Franconia area.
And so then when I looked at that next to the last paragraph of the draft language, where it talks about redevelopment along the northern boundary of Land Unit A, are they talking about just the shaded area or the parcel? And is there redevelopment going on with the office building? I was a little bit confused on that part. That's all.
And so I'm sorry, the paragraph that was the third paragraph right here.
David, she's referring to the paragraph in the existing plan text that follows
the bullet
our
items.
proposal.
Right, it follows the bullet items.
On the next page.
Okay.
So Carol, if I could answer, the bulleted items are like a subsection of Land Unit A.
I understand that. But I was just a little bit confused with I wanted to make sure I understood what the language was saying. I know that we're not changing that part, but I'm not as familiar with this part of the comp plan as I am with the Vandoorne TSA, for example. And I just wanted to make sure I understood what it was saying. That's all.
You're correct. So the redevelopment along the northern boundary, which to me would read the boundary line along the northern boundary where the Navy Federal Office Building is and properties immediately adjacent to the neighborhood. That's the ones that should utilize design and screening techniques.
Right, yeah, I was able to go through the rest of it and distinguish between, when you talk about tax map references, which ones refer to what's part of this application and what's not, but I just wanted to make sure I understood it, that's all. It was, I'm not looking for any change, I just wanted to make sure I understood what I was reading, so thank you.
No, you got it. Thanks.
Thanks, Karen. Anybody else with questions or suggestions?
Yes, this is Marta Morrissey, Springfield
Go-
Civic Association. I have my hand up there.
Go ahead, Marta.
Thank you. We reviewed all of this carefully, Springfield Civic Association, and we feel that this is covering what our residents are very concerned about. So, we find that this is very good. It's right in line. However, there are two other conditions that I'd like to discuss. One would be that access road and the maintenance of it. It's in very great disrepair now, and there's a long history of along Augusta Drive of no one knowing who's supposed to maintain that private roadway. So I would really like to see it specified that the upkeep and maintenance of that access drive. Maybe it can be included along with the, now it's the 1, 2, 3rd bullet from the bottom there, along with the streetscape improvements that, that could include the access road as well as the maintenance of that landscaping and the roadway. That's one issue that we wanted to discuss. And the other one is signage and lighting. That's a large building, and I think that's sort of carte blanche right now with signage. That perhaps if we're trying to conceal that it's a self-storage building and making it look more like an office use or something, I don't think we want to leave that totally open for signage to be anywhere on that building. I don't know if it's appropriate at this point to consider something like saying first floor usage could not have signage above the 3rd floor level or something like that. Maybe the storage unit, the storage business could have its sign higher because it does occupy 6 floors of that building. It would. Maybe the light on the sign turned off at night because the residents are concerned about, light that might, disturb them because they are very close. They are very close. I don't know, we had about 20 houses or something that are within 200 yards of the building. So I'd like to ask staff, what we could ask for, with, keeping the zoning and that's already established and standard. Could we do something like that? Like add in there restrictions on signage?
Signage is generally regulated by the zoning ordinance. And I think we could add like maybe general language like signage, including something like to this effect, signage including size, location, and lighting could contribute to the Springfield CPC design aesthetic.
Okay, so then later more specifics would be talked about. Anything else with lighting? Any other?
Marta,
Yes.
This is Liz Haig. I don't think for the comprehensive plan that we want to, wade into this area being, trying to restrict things that the zoning ordinance should address. But one thing that can happen at the zoning stage is what they call a coordinated sign plan that looks at all the signage comprehensively for the building. And so, especially depending on, what if there are any other ground floor uses or whatever. So I think that probably with the rezoning case would be our best bet, that we can't get into specific language for the comp plan. I mean, we can have something like David mentioned, but I think our best bet would be to do probably a coordinated sign plan as part of the rezoning.
Okay, yeah, I would really like to see something mentioned, so it would be addressed at some point, you know, as a very important issue. So, you have any wording you you could put down?
Well, we again, the zoning ordinance will regulate the size and amount and location. But again, a coordinated sign plan allows us to look at the design of the signs. And so again, we can't really legislate something in the comp plan at this, you know, it's just not the right stage. So I can't think of any other language to add other than just that we're looking for something to be, I see Laura's sending out some message here. Laura, do you want to, or is it?
It's actually Megan, but that's okay.
Oh, it's Megan.
No, that's okay. No, I was just going to say we can put something much broader something along the lines of signage shall be in a standard consistent with the Springfield CBC design, something along those lines, similar to what we did with the architecture. So if you look for the bullet architecture, it says, so the facility contributes to the area-wide aesthetic. So we can add some language like that. That's just a very basic signage shall contribute to the aesthetic of the CBC or something like that. As Liz said, it's regulated moreover during the zoning part of this application that's coming up.
Would we add language along the lines of signage shall not shed light on the residential neighborhood to the north?
Well, I mean, shine a light or be visible. I mean, if you can see it from a distance.
I'm struggling with what the right wordage would be, verbiage would be.
There are lighting standards also in the zoning ordinance. So some of the aesthetic can be, you know, is it a backlit sign? Is it a light shining on a sign? So
I mean, I can imagine
the aesthetic and the character is the best. Having language about the signage being consistent with the aesthetic and the character for the district is. But there are lighting standards that speak to illumination and the bright, you know, how bright it is and that sort of thing. So that again, that is covered in the zoning ordinance.
Ed, this is Tom. I think except for the aesthetics part of it, we always cover this in the rezoning application. And I think we should leave the specific language for that, given it's a zoning issue.
Just playing with the idea of what might be possible. I'm not sure.
I also want to mention. I also want to mention there was a reference to maintenance. We definitely are aware that there may be some maintenance issues on Augusta Drive, and I'm not sure about the Access Drive, but those are on our radars. We thought about how we might put it in the plan, but we ultimately just similarly determined that that wasn't appropriate for the comp plan. But I did want to reassure you that our land development folks are aware of the issues and will be addressing that as well at the zoning stage.
In this case, zoning will be running at the same time as the plans, so that's not far in the future, right?
Yes, that's correct. And that's sort of the benefits of having a concurrent case is we can be a little bit more specific, but we haven't had the opportunity to review the rezoning with this application yet. Hasn't been submitted, so it's coming soon. But yes, the signage and the street maintenance are two things that we get much more into detail on at a later point.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else?
Yeah, there are several hands up, including mine.
Why am I not seeing this? Well, go ahead, Tom, and
Okay,
I wish I
mine
could
is
see
a
who else had a
relatively,
hand up. Oh,
mine
now
is
I
a
see it.
relatively simple issue. On the second to last paragraph, it talks about the screening with evergreen trees. That's how my development was built 25 years ago. And we had a beautiful row of probably 40 cedar trees. In the big storm, we lost 27 trunks of those cedar trees, and we now have no screening. So I would like that language to not say evergreen, but native, non-deciduous trees that would have longer lives than, I don't know how to word it, but I'm just worried that they're going to end up like we are, where all of a sudden we have no screening.
Tom, could you point out exactly where that is in this? Is it in the
Sure.
stormwater management paragraph?
No, it's go down to where we just amended. It's right here.
It's the
Maybe it's
next
the
to the
paragraph.
last
Maybe it's just
paragraph of
above
the
that.
language.
Yeah, I think it's off-site from,
It may be the paragraph of just above that.
No, it's the
paragraph, there
it's
it is.
split. Yeah, it's split
Yeah.
over the
There you go.
page.
Yeah, with enhanced with evergreen trees.
So that language is not directly specific to the comp plan language that we're having right now. Because it talks about land unit A and is offsite, we don't have
Okay.
that within the scope of our language to change, if that makes sense.
But just for your FYI, if this
Understood.
comes up in other other proposals, we need to change it to evergreen and not specify, we need to specify native and not say evergreen.
Understood. Thank you. I'll pass that on.
Tom, all right. I now do see the hands up, and the remaining hand up I see is Dan Lagana. So Planning Commissioner Lagana, take it away.
I had a comment question about the maintenance issue. What's going on in my video? Sorry about that. With something else that occurred to me, I wonder, and it's probably worth checking out if some of the other properties are supposed to be helping out with the cleanup and maintenance and just aren't. So the office building and or the hotel. And they might actually be proffered to do so. I don't know. That's probably on all of us to figure that out. The other thing too is I was just gonna mention the Tom's point about the natives trees. I just wanted to echo that and just like to give some background. Like that's, as a planning commissioner, that's like one of the first things I try and do is ensure is reinforce native plantings and trees, because the root systems are just going to be a whole lot better than non-native species, and they're going to live a lot longer too. So anyway, that's it. Sorry.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, I am looking for other hands up. John Tomko.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the draft plan text as amended.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second. This is Leah.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Leah. Before we move to a vote, I want to see if there's anybody else who has something to say. I think I saw a hand up for Gail Little, not a member of the task force, but a member of the public. Gail, was there something you wanted to say?
On that property for months to be removed? I mean, who actually is contacted to do something like that?
I'm sorry, Gail. Could you repeat that?
Yes, there's been a mattress that has made its home on that property for months now, and I'm wondering who is responsible for cleaning something like that up.
I can talk to the property owner and look into that.
Thank you.
I'll take a look at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Okay, so does anyone on the task force feel a need for any further discussion before we move to a vote on the motion? I'm hearing no voices. I'm seeing no hands. Oh, John Tomko, is your hand residual, or you have something additional to say?
Residual.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the motion to approve the draft plan language as we have edited it here during this meeting. So in other words, as it appears on the screen. The motion to approve that language as our recommendation to the Planning Commission and the task force. So I will move to a roll call vote in just a moment. So before we move to a roll call, is there any voting member of the task force who did not answer up at the roll call at the beginning of the meeting? I think Carl Sell is with us, if I'm not mistaken. Carl, are you with us?
Carl was able to join for a minute and then he lost. He said he
gone.
lost his internet connection. So he said he was going to try to rejoin when he gets internet back.
Okay, but we don't have Carl at the moment. Okay.
He's not back in the attendees list either.
Yeah, I don't see him now. And I don't believe there's anyone else who I did not pick up at the roll call. Okay, so I will go down the roll of those who answered up at the initial roll call. All right. So again, the motion is to approve the draft plan text as amended during this meeting. If you agree to the motion, please vote yes. If you disagree with the motion, please vote no. And of course, you may always abstain. Robert Livingstone.
Yes.
Robert votes yes. Carol Allen.
Yes.
Carol votes yes. Rand Pixa.
Yes.
Rand votes yes. Leah Lambert Skidmore.
Leo votes yes.
Leah votes yes. Jane Kelly. Jane Kelly.
Yes.
Jane votes yes.
No.
Jeff Seffel.
Jeff Seffel votes yes.
Jeff votes yes. Tom Rickert.
Tom Rickert votes yes.
Tom votes yes. Cindy Potter.
Cindy Potter votes yes.
Cindy votes yes. Liz Murphy.
Yes.
Liz votes yes. Holly Doherty.
Yes.
Holly votes yes. John Tennant. John Tennant.
Don Tennant votes yes.
John votes yes. Marta Morrissey.
Marta Morrissey votes yes.
Marta votes yes. Steve Levinson.
Yes.
Steve votes yes. Tom Sachs.
Tom votes no.
Tom votes no. Jim McCracken.
No.
Jim votes no. John Tomko.
No.
John votes no. Richard Dresner. Richard Dresner.
Yes.
Richard votes yes. That is the end of the roll call. So we have 14 in favor, 3 opposed with no abstentions. I think we have our task force recommendation. You all. So now we move to Vandoorne TSA. Who is presenting? Is that?
I'm presenting that as well. So let me, I will share my screen.
We can see your screen.
All right, the second portion of this evening's meeting will review the Vandoorne TSA plan amendment. And the objectives for this portion of the meeting are to review the concepts for the draft plan text and continue the task force discussion before we draft the plan text, which we hope to show at the next meeting. So the concept for the draft plan text for Vandoorne proposes to add an option for up to 375 multifamily residential units and 65,000 square feet of land of non-residential uses for the entirety of Land Unit D. Up to 100 of these proposed residential units and 10,000 square feet of the community serving uses are proposed for 5605 Oakwood Road, which is highlighted in blue on the map. And the remaining 275 multifamily residential units and 55,000 square feet of community serving uses are proposed for 5400 5605 Oakwood Road, which are the parcels highlighted in green on the map. Under this concept, the existing base plan and the options for the subject parcels as recommended in the adopted comprehensive plan would remain. As we discussed at the last task force meetings, conditions in the comprehensive plan start out as issues or concerns that are identified during the review process by the task force and staff. At the last task force meeting, some of you mentioned that residential uses are not compatible with industrial uses, and one potential solution may be to require full consolidation of Land Unit D. Some potential conditions for parcel consolidation include text recommending full consolidation of Land Unit D to facilitate a coordinated development concept, or if this condition is not possible, since the parcels are owned by different owners, then another condition could be added recommending that 5605 Oakwood Road, which is a 12.5 acre parcel owned by Keller, can develop independently of the remainder of Land Unit D. Finally, another potential condition could recommend that if full consolidation is unachievable, or even if redevelopment is phased, then there should just be substantial and logical parcel consolidation and effective interim screening to buffer new residential uses from existing industrial uses. So what are the task force thoughts about these potential consolidation conditions on the screen?
Speak up if you have a response.
David, this is Tom Sachs.
Yeah, I have a comment. And I'm not sure it makes sense to consolidate or to try to consolidate all of Land Unit D. 5605, I believe, is already a consolidation. And it's been approved already for 850,000 square feet of office development. The other portion, the eastern portion is, I think, 12 or 13 parcels owned by maybe 3 or 4 different owners on the south side of Oakwood. It might make sense to consolidate those. Although one of our residents has talked to one of the owners of one of those parcels who's planning to develop 2 homes on his land. So I don't know if that would be possible. It might still be possible, but there could be some further consolidation of at that end. You know, those are my thoughts and the thoughts of some of the folks who live adjacent to some of those, to basically those parcels.
And this is Tom, and I think if I remember correctly, the big issue was the noise from the industrial impacting the residents. I sort of agree with Carol. We're never going to get full consolidation, so it doesn't make sense to penalize Kettler because we can't get full consolidation. But I do think we need to put in some kind of requirement for triple pane glass and whatever else you guys do to minimize any noise from the road reaching the houses.
Well, we get that noise already. I mean, from what's there. I mean, there were a lot of trucks going down to the eastern end. There are a couple of, you know, we get the heavy noise. I mean, we see some of that already. And
Yeah,
my
but-
understanding, and I think in the letter that Lori Greenleaf put together, they had talked about, and they did that when they spoke with our community, that they would put things into the sales documents and the covenants or whatever they put together with civic associations that let the people know that this is, you know, what they're buying and buying into. So I think that could be addressed.
But Carol, the point I'm making is that there are new building materials they can use that will pretty much prohibit the noise from entering the house. So since they're building new, they could do the triple pane glass and the whatever the other sound deadening things are to minimize the impact on the new owners.
No, that's true.
What I'm sorry to interrupt. I just have a question about the relationship to the rest of the site on this. And can we just
The relationship to the rest of what?
let the rest the entirety of the street here? Because what I get worried about is that we have industrial zoned or locations here, and then we also are moving into a residential zone on one part of the street. And so are kids going to be playing outside while dump trucks are driving by on a street? That to me is like a red flag, like candidly. I'm less worried about the noise and
White flag or red flag?
yeah, red flag, white flag, yeah. Well, so what I guess the question I pose is this, do we believe that I believe that there's going to be some type of VDOT widening that's going to take some of these parcels? Is that the case? My memory is a little hazy here from the last discussion. I apologize. I missed the last meeting of this. I was on travel for work.
Are you talking about the,
Am I getting these mixed up?
are you talking about the express lane proposal
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
Beltway?
On the Beltway. So are they going to take some of the parcels across the street from the Kettler? Or from
The across the street is, I mean, I think it's on the other side of the north side of Oakwood, between Oakwood and Vine.
Yep.
Maybe some of Vine, I don't know.
But nothing here. So
I think right now it's unknown whether or not they'll need additional right-of-way for the express lane expansion, or even what this, you know, what this expansion is going to entail.
okay, it is unfair to penalize one developer over there generally, but there is a matter of public safety here in terms of a phased development, which is perhaps the way we should be thinking about this.
Hi, this is Clara Johnson from DPD, and so we're hearing you talk about noise, and that's something that could be addressed. And this idea of whether industrial uses can share, this road with residential uses. I guess it'd be, that there are places in the county where that happens. If it's a safety issue, what, I guess any ideas for what would address that?
Some of those parcels are zoned residential in that.
It's a
in that
mix.
It's a mix, and there are some that are zoned residential. So somebody who owns one of those parcels could build a house on it.
Mm-hmm.
And smack dab in the middle of the industrial.
Did. I just did. I said I did.
So,
Richard, could you please mute yourself?
And so the difference is, making a recommendation that would encourage that condition, even though it's a condition now that's possible with by right development, or even with
Yeah, but come on, like,
even
no
with
one,
the
like,
current.
I get it. I get, like, I mean, come on, like, I get that we can, like, I don't mean to be argumentative here, but I understand that you can have by right development on a residential parcel and build whatever is zoned for. I get that. But what we're talking about here is adding density, okay, which will bring people, more people. And so with that was going to come, it's not just like you're having houses, onesies and twosies here and there. We're talking about possibly a townhouse development. I mean, we saw a concept of a bunch of stacked 2-over-2s, I think, a few weeks ago or a few months ago. And so where I go with this is if you have, and it's not just, it's also the type of industrial uses that are there now. It's one thing to say, okay, well, this is an I3, I4, and then we've got some houses next to this, or you've got a pretty quiet self-storage, not to reference what we've got here, that's sort of blends in with the neighborhood or something like that. I don't know. That's one thing. But it's another thing if we've got work trucks rumbling through down the street on their way back from work, and you've got, basically kids out there. And depending on where you go on that street, you get this false sense of security that it gets quiet down there, pretty quickly. And so, if you've, like, I guess what I'm just concerned, I can definitely see someone chasing a ball across the street, or something like that. I mean, I don't see that as being too far out of this world. And so, I always envisioned this, and I always thought that we had to do both sides of the street. I mean, that was that's sort of what success looked like to me for that reason. I guess it's not feasible. So I don't know, maybe there's a phasing component here, or there's some additional, I'm making too much hay of this, but that's something I'm a little worried about when we're looking at this.
And I appreciate you laying out what that would mean to not recommend full consolidation, or to not recommend mostly consolidation, maybe with the 12-acre parcel as the exception, to think about what that interim condition might be.
Mm-hmm.
If a portion develops first. I do, and that's exactly, go ahead.
The second application is for those 13 parcels. So looking at this, there is the potential that they could all be rezoned for, with the change in the comprehensive land language, because Lynn presented at least a high level potential proposal for what could be developed there and what they might look at. There's the possibility that those could be consolidated.
Okay. I mean, I haven't spoken to any of the applicants, so, I guess I'll wait for it.
And the reason staff put this slide first as an issue is it really determines what a lot of the other conditions are. As we imagine what the pattern for development would be. And so I know staff has really looked at each of these options and has thought about what that would be, and it comes down to what the land use pattern would be in the interim, and the realization that interim could be for a very long time. a condition where
got it.
there are, yeah. So, so
No,
I
and
appreciate.
just to say, I really appreciate the way you framed this discussion too. I think that was very good.
I would like to remind the task force that with the current option, this is also a possibility. With the mixed use option, there isn't a requirement for full consolidation. So this is already a possibility. There are conditions that have to do more with ensuring that there's a mix of uses, but that current option makes this possible too. Although I know there's been a lot of discussion about whether that first option, that mixed use option, is likely or not, but that's already in the plan. It doesn't mean we have to accept it in this condition, but it's just worth noting.
Thank you. I should note, we were supposed to go to some public questions and comments before we went to the task force. We seem to have gone directly into the task force. Is there anybody from the public who has any questions or comments about this?
Ann Bloss has her hand raised.
Hi, yes.
Go ahead, Ann. I don't know why I don't see your hand raised, but go right ahead.
No, that's okay. So I have a question about how this is done. Like, what are the rules of the game here? My question is, in these three concepts on the slide, do they allow any language about future development of what I think of as Oakwood East? Or is it all just like a kind of a take it or leave it with the nominations? Like either we accept or deny the proposals for everything, or we accept or deny 5605 separately from the other part, or the third one, it looks to me like we say something about consolidation as to whether or not we accept or deny. So this is just, I don't fully understand how this works and whether or not we can say anything about like 5605, maybe we like that, and future development of the rest of Oakwood needs to move in this direction or something like that. What are the rules in that regard?
There's, I would say that let's see, what's the simplest way to answer this? The original proposals or nominations, and really what the board authorized is the outer envelope for what can be considered. And it's helpful to understand also that there are updated concepts that the landowners have shared with the task force. And I think we might have an old slide that compares those. But really, it's the task force can make a recommendation about any of those or something of less intensity. Does that sort of answer the question? And so as far as these choices for consolidation, these are all options for a recommendation. They're not all entirely consistent with what the landowners have proposed to do. And so that presents a challenge about the feasibility. Would the last option, which I would characterize as not entirely consistent with what, well, no, I'm sorry, let me put it the other way. Full consolidation is not entirely consistent with what the landowners have proposed. And so there's a question about whether that's feasible. Does that sort of answer the question?
Yeah, I mean, and just me trying to understand how the process works, it does sound like there is some room for, yeah, and like I hesitate to say this because I don't really know how this process works, but from my perspective, it sounds like there is some room for some commentary about future development of Oakwood East needs to consider, residential, or just some kind of language maybe is a possibility.
Okay, so if to address the compatibility issues you're saying, maybe there can be extra conditions or commentary. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, essentially.
Sure. Okay, and yes, and yes. And, you know, we've brought some ideas, some issues that were raised, and there may be others that the task force thinks of.
Thank you. All right, Holly Doherty.
Hi, Ed. I appreciate that. I know that I missed the last meeting, so I apologize for that, but I'm just concerned about keeping industrial areas for businesses and just want to make that comment that how important it is that we have places for businesses in Fairfax County where they can operate, where they can exist, where they can provide the services that the community needs. And you know, we can't turn everything into residential. We already have a lot of high density residential in the pipeline for that area. And so I just want to say that to the task force, that I hope that you'll consider that as we move this forward.
Thanks, Holly. Carol, I think we're getting some noise on your end. Could you, if you're not speaking, could you mute yourself? Thank you. John Tomko has a hand up.
I'm looking at the concept for future development for this TSA, and under Land Unit D, this is on page 20 of the document. Land Unit D, it talks about infill development of low-intensity industrial offices, uses up to 0.25 FAR on the north side of Oakwood Road, and office use up to 0.50 FAR on the south side is planned. My question, though, to the staff primarily is this language that you have on the slide, what does it modify in the bullets on page 20?
So this language on the slide is just kind of a concept of, well, let me back up. It's not going to, if this plan amendment goes forward, it's not going to modify any of the base plan or the options for Land Unit D. It's just going to add an additional option to support the two proposals.
So it would be an additional bullet?
Yeah, it would be a conditional option probably at the end of Land Unit D. So
yeah. Right, David, and just much like the current plan has that mixed use option, there's a base plan, there's a mixed use option. This could be an additional option. There are places in the comprehensive plan where you have 2 or 3 planned options. So this could be, it would likely be its own unique option. It's possible that, you know, we haven't up until this, that would be another study to kind of unplan another option. And so the way this has come about is this is considering adding an option, kind of whole and unto itself.
Well, I'm more confused now than I was before we started this thing. And rather than going down a rabbit hole, trying to get a response that satisfies me, I'll just sign off.
And I don't know that I can answer Mr. Tomko's question, but for those that are wondering about the question or remaining confused, the intention isn't to unplan the base plan. What happens when you remove a base plan is that you can create a condition, sometimes inadvertently, for a non-conforming use. Those uses that are there now, if they came in for some kind of special exception or something, they would be found to be non-conforming with the comprehensive plan. And that's a concern we have, while at the same time, sometimes trying to incentivize redevelopment. And it's related to this consolidation discussion. full consolidations certainly simplifies things. But as representatives of the landowners have said, maybe, and I think they've expressed that in the task force meetings, it may not be realistic for them.
So
Okay.
I imagine you would like to get a sense of the task force, what sort of direction we'd like to head in with regard to consolidation.
And I'm getting, it doesn't have to be a vote, but I'm getting a strong sense that, trying to work with language that maybe didn't require full consolidation, but well, I am hearing some conflicting thoughts or some unresolved concerns about consolidation, but mostly looking at options 2 or 3. Mostly looks like there's interest in the middle option.
This is Tom, and I actually prefer the third option because that covers the screening and buffering that I think is really important if it doesn't all develop together.
Sure. Okay.
Ed, I have my hand up. It's questions.
Tom, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Go ahead.
Yeah. First question, the current underlying comprehensive plan that we keep referring to, when was that written?
It was amended February 23, 2021.
That's the most recent?
That's what it says.
That's,
I think that the current,
But it was originally written, I think, in 2017.
now this is Mike Linsky. I mean, the plan recommendation goes back to the 90s, like when the TSA came in. It was amended in like 2000 slightly, but not a lot. So it's pretty much.
That's what I
been
mean.
there
For
since the
unit,
TSA.
for
And it was
land
before
unit
that, it
D.
was planned for industrial and office, and that's sort of
Right.
the source of the base recommendation is. And the way our plan works, a lot of this has to do with the whole proffer system and how we get infrastructure and all that. There's a base plan that sort of mostly represents existing zoning and what's out there in the world, what's entitled. And then there's optional, the sort of ultimate plan is usually presented as some sort of option. And then in return for going after that option, and that usually includes, extra intense development intensity, all that, you're expected to contribute, additional facilities and additional infrastructure and everything. So if the ultimate plan was the base plan, then we would have no way to sort of expect all that extra infrastructure to get built. So it has to sort of be like an extra level of intensity above the baseline. So that's why the ultimate plan is usually some sort of option. In this case, it has been for all these years, the vision was for sort of transit-oriented development, just because there was a transit station there. That was what we do around transit station areas. And that was the thinking. And then, it's just come to everyone's realization over the years that it may not be all that feasible here to have that level of transit-oriented development. So now we're talking about the potential for a second option.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah.
Which
That's sort of
my
big picture
second
kind of-
question is, this is a transit-oriented development, okay? And just to leave transit out of it, having industrial uses in a TSA, I find that kind of, incompatible with the current, market and the location. So that's why the full consolidation of land unit D makes sense. It may not make things happen right away, but in the end, here again, it's like kicking the can down the road. And whoever gets in there first, and this is a very unusual TSA because it's bifurcated by 495. So you've got two unusual instances here.
It's a TSA without actual access to the transit, yes.
Yeah, you get all the advantages of being within the circle, but we're not addressing transit. Like you have to get in your car to go to the metro. And then whoever the developer gets in there first makes out. But the kids may be in jeopardy. You've got some very heavy industrial use. I can't think of another metro station that has a crematorium. I mean, within the TSA. This is why we need to plan and make a game plan for the whole area. And I don't know the answer, but it seems like we're not looking at the elephant in the room.
I'll chime in with another big picture, kind of look at it as, because consolidation, it's not all about just phasing. It's all about also about incentivizing redevelopment of the whole. Like if there's no consolidation required for some parcels there, it might be in their interest that the base recommendation might be fine for what they want to do.
Well, and then
you know what I mean? So it's also about achieving the overall vision for that thing. But then again, you have to look at, ultimate consolidation of the whole land unit would be ideal, and everybody, in the planning world. But then again, you have to look at feasibility as well, and whether that is.
And that's my next question.
So it's all about
my last question. Alexandria's done a lot of planning on the Eisenhower West and East, and now the Mark. They've done a lot of planning. How is Fairfax County coordinating with them, where these two boundaries, where this overlap of the say exists? Are we weaving into there? Are we meeting with them?
One of the discussions we had early on, and so it's now been a while, was about the mix of uses and whether this land unit D, had a strong relationship to Metro and the activity of the transit station area. And we raised the question, is it possible that this land unit should have a stronger relationship to the neighborhood, have good as possible access to transit and other modes? And I think that's a discussion we have on another slide, but and recognizing that there's a lot of employment and a lot of retail commercial uses already in this transit station area. It's just not most of it isn't in Fairfax County. So in that sense, there's some consideration to how people live in this community, how they move to services. But this option kind of moves this to having a stronger relationship to the neighborhood. It would be creating a new part of the neighborhood, possibly. Is that
To the neighborhood to the south?
Yes, the existing fabric of residential.
I would think we were trying to connect with the public transportation to the north.
Yes, and I think those aren't mutually exclusive, but the idea that this would be an active, vibrant, mixed, like that there's enough development potential or enough land area to make this a vibrant, walkable, mixed use community with commercial and residential. That's not what this option is. There could be some neighborhood serving commercial to serve just the nearby, the new residential development or nearby residential community, but this would be moving away from that other option that already exists in the plan, which is that first mixed use option is really trying to integrate and trying to have an intensity level to support that mixed use transit oriented development. And that's also a decision with this option. Do we want to incentivize redevelopment of this property for what people are looking to build now, which is more housing?
Yeah, we still have the problem with the traffic on Vandoorne. It's just not being addressed in any of these.
There's something I wanted to add something here. I recognize this is it isn't a TSA. I think where we're going though is that the boundaries of the TSA are, I don't want to say meaningless here, but the value of the TSA has been significantly reduced by the fact that it's bifurcated by the highway. And so additionally, the grading on this, I mean, the topo is very steep on certain parts of this land. If you walk back there, I just don't see people just sort of casually strolling down to the metro and then walking back up from this site at all. And part of the thing is too, is, we taken so much industrial space off the market, and it's raised rent significantly on industrial space in Fairfax County or in the area already. And that's in addition to the fact that industrial is probably one of the hottest zones that you can have right now. And so, you know, by further reducing, it's actually a good thing that you have industrial space that's adjacent to a highway. Now, that's a general statement. Okay, with respect to this, I just want to maintain the sense that, like, you know, the directionally having you know, and we were, when the applicants, and this is a different set of applicants, because this Oakwood Road has, I think, been resuscitated on some level a few times now. But we told the original applicants, we, as a Supervisor Leska, when we met with them, and this was, you know, January of 2020, that, and Ed may have been in the meeting too. We were like, look, if you go through this process, the one thing we really want you to strive to do is look at both sides of Oakwood Road. And that was from the very beginning. And so I'm not, like, we've been very clear about that. It's not like ambiguous to me. And so I hope that that is, like, the applicants are sort of listening, because to me, that's how this is successful. It's not going to be successful if you take one block, one piece of this. It just won't. And so there's just too much element of risk here. And so I just leave it at that. I know we have other pages and slides to get to. And I don't want to sound like pouring too much cold water on here, but those are sort of the realities.
You know,
I have a question for Lynn. I don't have the application in front of me. Does your application include the north side of Oakwood as well as the south?
Yes, we provided notification to those
Right.
owners, and we included both sides of the road.
Right, that's what I thought. So with these two applications, both the north and the south side of Oakwood is taken into consideration.
Correct. It would be part of the same planning effort.
But this is going to end up being concurrent with a rezoning, I presume.
That again?
That's what we would like to do.
Is the intention that this would be concurrent with a rezoning? And so do you have the owners on board for that rezoning?
You know, I know that one of the owners, John Driggs, whom I've been working with, has been having conversations with the owners down there. So
Okay.
I can't speak to that, but I do know that he's been having conversations. And I do know that, you know, Kettler, that has the property at the end at 5605 Oakwood, I think they are planning to file a rezoning shortly. And if we can, you know, get a little bit further in this process, I think that that's something that my clients would consider as well.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that Kettler is going to go for a rezoning. It's going to help with the negotiations with the other landowners that they hear from Kettler is moving forward with this, which will give them the impetus or the incentive to get on board with a consolidated proposal.
And I can talk to Mr. Driggs and find out where he is in his conversation.
Okay, thank you.
And I think staff has heard enough to try to draft something. I try to show you what it would look like to say either, you know, the blue and green area or all of land unit D. And
so what I was talking about earlier with the widening of the express lanes, so there might be takings of some of these parcels as a result of the widening, correct?
it's possible. We don't know yet.
Okay, we don't know. All right.
Okay. And this is I think this is the hardest aspect of this. Maybe we can move to the next topic. I don't remember what it is now. I think it's easier.
We'll see.
Sure. Well, the next topic is transitions, and we kind of already touched on that with the last conversation. So currently the comp plan contains countywide policy recommending compatible transition between adjoining adjoining land uses through height and the use of buffering and screening. Additionally, transitions are also regulated by the zoning ordinance. That said, a potential condition to address transitions as shown on the slide could be added to the draft plan text recommendation to strengthen requirements for any transition. So this would basically add plan text for transitions between any new potential development and the existing residential neighborhoods to the south. So I guess what does everyone think about a proposed condition to strengthen the plan recommendations for transitions?
It's always a positive, I think, because we're looking at residential, but it's not the same. We've got single family homes to the south, and we're looking here at a combination of townhouses, 3 single family homes, and in the other parcels, multifamily, apartment buildings, low to mid-rise apartment buildings. So it's residential, but it's a different type of residential. So I would think that the transitioning should be stronger than residential to residential, and perhaps stronger than what's in the existing.
I agree with Carol. Whatever that's. Yeah.
Anyone else? Holly, do you have your hand up, or is that residual?
I couldn't figure out how to take it down. I'm sorry, Ed.
Just click on the same place you click to put it up, I think.
I tried. I couldn't get it to go down. I still can't get it to go down. I don't know.
There's a question in the chat about whether this is is this the area to specify distances for residential or commercial? It could be. I think we say appropriate buffers. And so, different ways to treat transitions have to do with distance, have to do with screening, or neither of those, but design. So that there isn't always an expectation that you can't see the neighboring building, but that it's designed in a way to make that acceptable. So this lists all those ways for consideration, but if people have thoughts about what kind of distance is expected, or what you hope that the distance will accomplish for adjacent development, you'd be interested in hearing that.
The only hands up I see are from members of the public. Randy Davis.
There we go. Yes, hi. Just wanted to say I wasn't really prepared to answer that question, but we are among the landowners to the south of the land unit D, and we directly behind it. And we strongly support anything that can be done to strengthen the transitions. Carol already certainly addressed this. Any existing trees that we could be that we could require to remain would be excellent in the interest of urban forests as well. Thanks.
Thank you. And Ann Bloss.
Hi, yeah, I wanted to say that I recall there was something about a 65-foot buffer between, I want to say, residential and commercial, or residential and office space, but I don't remember the details on that. And I wonder if there's some kind of required buffer distance between residential and residential, or if that's something that can be put into the text that we're talking about now.
There are screening requirements in the zoning ordinance between different kinds of uses. I don't recall that there are any between residential and residential. And that's a question. What do you do with, there are different things you can do with the open space on a property, and they all serve different purposes. Do you want it to be, do you want separation from neighboring uses? Do you want, what else can you do with?
I mean, to be honest, I'm just trying to recall, like, I don't know what the requirements are or what is appropriate to put into the type of language that we're talking about now. So really, I'm just, trying to see if I get education for myself.
I think what we can do, and I don't have it open, the transitional screen, they're called the transitional screening requirements in the zoning ordinance. Unless, Mike, you happen to have that open. You don't have to answer that now, Mike, unless you.
I don't think there's generally screening there. I can't remember now for sure if there, I don't, between multifamily and single family, but generally not. But I was going to say that I would personally, I would shy away from putting real specific sort of distances and things at this point without having a real proposal in front of us as to what we're looking at, because that might limit them at the rezoning time into really evaluating it at that point. It's more important to get the intent across at this point. But if there's certain intent aspects, I mean, there's already a lot in the policy and in the area-wide guidance that's sort of encouraging these kind of transitions. But it's more important just to get the sort of intent in there. And then if you're not looking at a particular proposal, it's hard to kind of come up with specifics at this point.
Thanks, Mike. And we can bring that back and show you what the zoning ordinance requires. There's a question in the chat about residential and industrial. So if we could share that with the task, maybe it can be an email with a link so that people, I know with the revisions to the zoning ordinance, I don't know what it looks like now. It used to be a
Well,
table.
if there were commercial to come in, which next to residential, it would be required to.
Yes, yeah. And the question was about industrial with residential.
If you bring in residential next to the commercial, it doesn't really work the opposite necessarily.
Okay, so we can bring that back to the task force, but it sounds like there's, this is some additional language on top of this countywide, just a general countywide policy. This is always a consideration with new development. When conducting development review, we're interested in the compatibility and the design. But it sounds like there's interest in talking about this specific area and this specific neighborhood, existing neighborhood, and this specific transition. And so staff can draft something so that you can look at that and see if it covers the concerns the task force has. So I know it's 8:51. Maybe we can get one more topic in. I don't know, Ed, okay, yeah.
So at the last task force meeting, we also heard your concerns about the lack of pedestrian and bicycle access to the Vandoorne Street Metro Station. And the adopted comprehensive plan does include area-wide recommendations that pedestrian and bicycle traffic should be safely accommodated to the metro station. There is an opportunity to strengthen the guidance for improved access to the metro station through potential conditions, which could include plan text recommending improved pedestrian and bicycle access to transit facilities, such as the Vandoorne Street Metro Station and the bus stops along South Vandoorne Street. Additionally, plan text could also be added recommending additional connections to adjacent neighborhoods, as well as nearby Bush Hill Park and Bush Hill Elementary School with a pedestrian and bicycle network. And does anyone have any, I'm sure you do have thoughts about what pedestrian and bicycle improvements that you would like to see in the area?
Well, we obviously want to see the improvement that I think the county is going forward with the path down Vandoorne Street to the metro. What are these purple things in here?
So yeah, the purple represents sidewalks, and it's a kind of an incomplete network. And I realize there's some inconsistencies here that these sidewalks don't exist anymore. And there's that staircase as well that I realize is in pretty bad shape. And then the blue represents other types of paths, like shared use paths, like the one, for example, beneath the Beltway on-ramp.
And I guess when you're looking at potential, connect new and existing neighborhoods with pedestrian and bicycle network, what does that mean? Are you going to connect my network, my street to a bike path that's going to go through Oakwood down to Vandoorne Street and back and forth, bringing all kinds of new people into my neighborhood?
I didn't follow the question. You're asking if there would be a new bike path connecting where?
Well, I guess when we talk about connect new and existing neighborhoods with pedestrian and bicycle network, what exactly is it that you're talking about? Are you connecting the purple places to the non-purple or improving them here? Are you going to take a bike path that's going to go from here down and through here down to here and back again? That might not be desirable for those who live over here.
I imagine there are no bike paths in the neighborhood, that it's really just sidewalks and people ride their bikes on the street. Like, correct. I think that's a typical condition for neighborhoods. The idea is that the new residential community wouldn't have to get into their car to make their way to a park, or kids in the neighborhood, in the new housing, could walk to school. It's that sort of thing. Or if, kids in this neighborhood have friends in the existing neighborhood that they can walk to each other's houses or take a bike to each other's houses. It's not necessarily a new bicycle facility. It could be as simple as a trail, maybe in the RPA.
So I think if I am reading this correctly, that blue appendage off the purple, that right here, there's, if you could, David, if you could move your cursor down to the map. Keep going down to go to the Bush Hill neighborhood. I think it's Westchester Street, right, Carol?
Yeah, Westchester here.
Westchester.
The purple that's right below the black box is Westchester.
That's Westchester Street. So David, go to that blue appendage at the end at
Bush Hill Park.
Right. So that turns, if my memory serves me correctly, that becomes a dirt path through the woods.
Correct.
And that connects to Oakwood, right?
I believe
I'm
so.
pretty sure
Yes.
I've walked that a few times.
Yeah.
And so, there are some natural paths already that exist. I would just add a few things. Like my just general perspective is, on the previous slide, we were talking about bufferings and we kind of got into conditions, site conditions. I'm not sure, I know the applicants are listening. We're going to destroy a lot of forest with these applications. And so a good forested condition is something that I think we should really look for. We can, we'll see, but I think that's feasible in plan text. And then the second thing would be the pedestrian facilities I see here. The connections, like what the county's doing right now, is really great, but it's just really tough to just walk around and run and do anything around here. That underpass, that area that goes under the on-ramp, gets pretty sketchy. It's just like a weird, their coverage is poorly maintained, all of this. So it would be, there'd probably need to be something, generalized, expressing upkeep of this, because, we want it to be safe and used if and when it does, when and if it does develop. So
I don't know if we still do, but we've had a lot of folks from our neighborhood actually walk to the metro down that path. They come through
that's
over
great
here someplace and down, and looked at working with the developers here on Land Unit D about providing a footpath, not a bicycle path or a thing like that, but just basically a footpath that would go through, which would be a more direct line to get over to the metro.
When you say over here, Carol, we can't see your cursor, but can you just generally tell us what
Okay, where the Westchester, well, basically south of the black box is
Oh, got
Brooklyn Bush Hill. Westchester, Brookview, Brookland,
Mhm.
around the park. I live near the park, so I'm in that purple area. And so we've had people, walk to the metro over to the blue path over there to the left.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we had worked with some of the landowners in Land Unit D was from Westchester to provide a path through down to Oakwood to facilitate getting down there. But we weren't looking at bike paths and nice big wide paths that facilitated traffic in and out. It was more of a path to allow people to continue to walk and maybe a shorter distance to the metro.
They may bike to the metro if you.
I don't, well, they walk, some of them bike, but they bike down Vandoorne Street, Franconia to Vandoorne.
And I think it'd be unlikely that we can talk to our transportation support, our transportation staff. Nobody's talked about building an exclusive bicycle facility, but maybe a multi-use trail for people.
Well, when you talk about having children in this new community being able to bike to school, you're talking about Bush Hill School, which is in the Brooklyn Bush Hill community. So that means they're going to bike from down there up, so you're going to have more than just a footpath.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how kids bike to school now, or if they really just choose to walk in the neighborhood.
Most of them from our community walk.
Yeah, so it'd probably be a similar. It's not that much further.
Well, it depends on how they have to go. If they have to walk out Oakwood to Vandoorne and come back, it's a long walk.
That's right.
They'll be driven by mom or dad.
That's right. That's what would happen.
Hey, Clara, let me just interfere.
Yes.
I'd like to remind them that in our last presentation, or the one before this, the last presentation, Tom Burke had actually shown last couple of slides, which showed some kind of, which showed spots and areas where we are trying to look for improvement for pedestrian and bicycle-oriented facilities, and to improve those areas as much as we can. So if you have the slides with you, you could go over them. But they're studies. At this point, they're just studies. They are not anything that have been implemented.
And I remember those, and if I remember correctly, those were from the WMATA study. And I don't know who from our community was involved in any of those studies, because I haven't found anybody who was aware of them. I mean, they showed about 4 paths in and out of the community.
Yeah. Can I just make one statement? If any paths are ever planned between the communities, they would have to go through a rigorous outreach process, further analysis. It's not going to get built based on this comprehensive plan. So you will have additional opportunities to speak on any kind of trail connections before they're built.
And thanks for all of that, Tom and Arpita.
Thank you.
The key for us is to write a condition that explains what we're trying to accomplish, and won't at this stage identify, I mean, unless we already know, but I don't think we do, where those connections are going to happen, where they need to happen. And so we want to make sure that whatever wording we choose, we're explaining that we want to improve access to bus on Vandoorne, to more direct paths to transit for the new community and the existing community. It sounds like they want an easier way to get to Metro. And then this second bullet, which has more to do with how the new neighborhood and the existing neighborhood relates to each other. Can you walk to your neighbor's house? Is there a way to improve that? And then this question of bike that it sounds like we're unsure about. So that's what there is to look forward to. We'll draft something and show you what that condition would look like in plan text. And I think based on this conversation, we'll identify where maybe we were uncertain about whether we were hitting the mark. And I want to acknowledge it's 9:03. I know it's now past time.
How many more slides do you have, David?
We have a few more topics.
Well, I mean, we could cut this off right now because of the time, but, you know, since we want to make the next meeting our last meeting, maybe it makes sense to push through. So staff can get an idea of what we're thinking.
Okay. Well, let's try to power through, David.
David, you're going to be canonized after this.
So at the last meeting, I heard from some of you about concerns about the feasibility of the implementation of the planned bridge between Oakwood Road and Vine Street. And, you know, as all of you know, the plan text for the Vandoorne transit station area recommends a multimodal bridge connecting Oakwood Road to Vine Street across the Beltway to facilitate redevelopment of the Vine Street corridor. And the transportation analysis for the use proposed by this plan amendment concluded that it would not require a bridge to Vine Street for transportation purposes. That said, a condition could be added to the comprehensive plan that any redevelopment should demonstrate that it does not preclude the implementation of the planned bridge connecting Oakwood Road to Vine Street in Land Unit B. So I guess I want to open the conversation. Does anyone have any thoughts about this potential condition?
No. So that it.
One comment, and look at the Alexandria master plan and their development around Vandoorne, Landmark turning into the hospital. They've got wording in there that says that because they're talking about building a bridge over 395, okay, and they're saying that the policy is intended to fund off-site improvements that could not be constructed by an individual redevelopment site. So they were trying to coordinate with VDOT and, you know, larger entities. So they have a plan. It may not go forward, and that's what we're suggesting here, is the plan that was mentioned in the CIP should be pursued, in my opinion.
And I think the first step, I mean, this bridge is already on the comprehensive plan, already on the transportation plan in that way. And so I think we just want to make sure decisions aren't made that preclude that bridge in the future when that funding is in place. And so we thought that one way to address that was to add a condition that redevelopment would need to demonstrate that it doesn't do that.
I think at the bare minimum that is necessary.
Yeah.
But, you know, every time we talk about, you know, improving pedestrian bike access to Metro, all I think about is without this bridge, the only way to get through to Metro is that tiny little pedestrian walkway under the Beltway that's really hostile. And, you know, I don't know what can be done about that, if anything. And, you know, without the bridge, you know, there's no real access.
And the bridge is only going to connect Vine and Oakwood, right? I mean, it doesn't go anyplace else to the Metro or under the.
That's correct.
Well, right. Though
and
potentially, if there was the potential of a pedestrian connector from Vine Street to the Metro platform, but that is, of course, a second project.
If you look at the Alexandria master plan, they've got 3 potential multimodal bridge designs that cross the railroad tracks, connecting the north to the Metro for pedestrians. So I'm just wondering, how come we're not synchronizing with Alexandria, at least talking to them?
Where are these bridges?
They're in the plan, the new landmark plan from Alexandria, and they had 3 potential sites, and it crosses that railroad, and it connects north of their metro station to the metro station. So they got to cross the railroad.
But the railroad is on
There's
this
2
map. Where's the railroad is? You got I-95, 495, and then the railroad, aren't they both on the south side of Vine Street?
I think there's two railroads. My only point is Alexander's got a plan to cross the northern one and connect their people to the metro station.
So that they're crossing the metro lines, the metro tracks.
No, it's the up there by the concrete and it's just in part of the Eisenhower West plan.
Right, yeah. So they're crossing the metro lines, basically.
Well, and it's not a vehicular, it's multimodal, because if you put a vehicular bridge across, everyone's going to cut through this neighborhood to avoid Vandoorne Street. It's just to connect people that are going to be in these residential houses or whatever businesses to the metro.
Right.
I'm not sure what the question is. We have a countywide active transportation plan that's underway where we're looking at our bicycle and trails plans. We're updating them. There's going to be an extensive public outreach. If you think there should be bicycle pedestrian type overpasses, that would be someplace that you could provide input to that effort. And we have bicycle pedestrian crossings of the Beltway up by Inova and Merrifield. I mean, we have them in our plans and we can add them to our plans. Doesn't mean the fact that they're not.
Isn't this one already in the plan? And instead of
the only thing in the plan,
well, instead of precluding it or not precluding it, let's keep it included.
It should be included. I have a question. Are there any actual plans to increase or widen the express lanes on the Beltway in this area?
That study is,
yes,
that study is just underway. It's probably, I don't know if it's a year or two in length. So over the next couple of years, we'll be learning more about. It's called the I-495 Southbound South Side Express Lane Study.
Okay, and if they were to take extra land, it would come from Oakwood as opposed to Vine?
We don't know at this point.
Okay, we don't know.
And we have made our liaisons to that study. We've made them aware of the Oakwood Vine connection and that it should be considered. I don't think that VDOT's going to build it, but it should definitely be considered when they do their South Side Express Lane study. I mean, we're doing our best to make sure that nobody overlooks the fact that it is in the comp plan. It's going to stay in the comp plan. I think this is good language to make sure that it remains viable in the comp plan. And
I think it should stay in the plan.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're not recommending.
Right. The plan would stay, the bridge would stay planned. It's just an additional condition that triggers more than that when redevelopment comes in, that there be some consideration given to making sure there's room for that improvement. Okay, and maybe we have time for one more. What's the next one?
Yeah, I believe it's actually the last one. So next is stormwater management, and the environmental policy plan includes recommendations that development proposals should prevent and reduce pollution of surface and groundwater resources and protect and restore the ecological integrity of streams in Fairfax County by implementing best management practices to reduce runoff pollution and other impacts. Any potential conditions should minimize impervious surfaces and incorporate stormwater management controls that exceed the minimum standards for redevelopment. Does the task force have any ideas about a specific quantifiable stormwater management goal for the site that they would like to see?
I have some specific ideas, but
Well, obviously protecting the RPA that's there,
I understand there was a lot of consideration to this language for the Brandon Avenue proposal. This is a different type of parcel. It's going to have a lot of RPA that will be protected and EQC. But I think I think staff is already in a place, just so that the task force knows that we would expect that they exceed the current minimum standards that are required by the stormwater regulations.
Can you vocalize what that means to the entire task force? The stormwater regs.
We didn't bring our stormwater planners, and no, I'm sorry, I wouldn't do a very good job
like
of it. I think just generally there's, I mean, I think there has been stormwater regulations are in the process of being updated and made more current at the state level. And I think we're in this transitional period where Fairfax County needs to incorporate that into their, I think PFM, no, not PFM, their local ordinances and standards. So right now, one of the tools we have is in the comprehensive plan to ask for that anytime there's a proposal for a plan amendment where it's appropriate to ask for more controls than minimum required.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to like spotlight. I just didn't know if there was something, if you had something different in mind. Where I would go with this is like, we're kind of, you know, we're near we're like right up against Cameron Run. We've got a lot of EQC and RPA on the site. You know, we really want to double down and emphasize the good forested condition, which for the folks on means basically like when you finish developing the site, it should be as in a condition as if it were forested, right? So we should try and replicate that. And so in my mind, what that means is, you know, we really have stringent stormwater controls here. And like, if I like thinking ahead of the planning into like what a rezoning might look like in a weird backwards way helps me think about the plan. You know, want to have, really want to contain, you know, there's probably, I would imagine there's some soils, there's issue with soils there. I could be wrong. So, you know, you're probably going to look at heavy phosphorus reduction, which is how we measure pollution in a way on sites. And you're going to ask for a lot of treatment on site. You know, so we typically, you know, sometimes we start with 20% below the pre-development load is like the starting point. We would, you know, we'd probably want to get to a significant, you know, phosphorus reduction. I mean, getting close to 50, I would say. I mean, where I would go if this was a rezoning. And so, and at least an inch in runoff reduction of rain.
So these are all measures that have been applied to different types of development. So one of the considerations is how much.
Okay, I guess what I'm saying is like from a planning commissioner's perspective, this is ultimately going to come before the commission. So this is like giving a path to success here. Like,
so the number
to be successful. Like, okay, go ahead. Maybe
I was going to say there is a number.
What is
that staff has that stormwater staff had put forward, but it hasn't been vetted. You know, it's still under consideration. And it was David, what was it? I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, David. Yes. Is it 25?
I believe it was
like
25%.
25% is what you guys have been doing on some of the other sites.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
But I think we still want to consider, we want to think about whether that's the best that we can ask for, whether that's reasonable, whether that gets it done, whether it gets the job done, given the site and given the site.
I mean, like when you're dealing with a concurrent rezoning that's imminent, that's happening at the same time, it's kind of easier to pull out these numbers. We can look at what we've done in other places around, but it's sort of an evolving thing. So like if we're implementing a plan that may not be realized for 10 years, you know, we could be limiting ourselves by putting in a number. That's
I'm with you on
the
that.
screening thing, sort of want to get the
I'm with
intent
you on that,
across
Mike.
and not.
Mike, I'm with you on that. What I'm saying is that from a, that's why I said at the beginning, it's kind of like a weird backwards way of me thinking about this, but the where I'm going is that we like to have this as tight as possible with the most modern techniques available to improve water quality or to improve water quality and reduce quantity. It's like it's always quantity and quality. Sometimes we're trading off on sites. Those two we want to really control here because of how close it is to Cameron Rod and then the EQC and RBA.
Okay. Very good. We will beef this up maybe with a few more details about what we're trying to accomplish with the expected stormwater management controls. Okay, well, that's, I think, what we had. This is the essential framework for what we thought a plan recommendation could look like. I think you were immersed in a lot of the same questions staff is immersed in when thinking about our staff recommendation. We can draft plan text, try to get that vetted with our senior staff to try to get us get something to you that hopefully we can have some consensus on.
That would be nice. I hope so. Thank you. Well, 9:20. I think we've gone as far as we can go for tonight. I thank everybody. Our next meeting will be April 25th, and hopefully that will be our last meeting. We can adopt a recommendation on that night. We will conclude our business. Thank you, everybody.
I wanted to thank the staff and also to thank Lori for the letter that she wrote. She saved me some time in having to dig through the comprehensive plan to find the things that we had discussed the last meeting. So thank you all for putting it together. I appreciate it.
I agree. I think
Amen.
we're very lucky to have such great staff here in Fairfax County. So I really appreciate it as well. The amount of work that goes into this is significant for everyone involved. So thank you.
All right. On that note of good feeling, thank you all, and see you next time. And we're adjourned.
Okay. Good night.
Have a good evening.
You too.
You all.
Take care.
Good night.